Chapter 28, God Watching. One of my best childhood memories was when I was 5 or 6. My addict dad got in a rage again and was beating my mom with a beer bottle when my mom grabbed me and ran outside. We slept outdoors that night. I think it might have been on the neighbor's lawn. As we lay there looking up at the stars, my mom, who couldn't speak very good English, pointed up at the stars and said, "See those stars? You're going to shine like one someday." I knew in that instant that she loved me and she was doing the best she could, but she simply didn't have the skills or ability to be a real mom. Katie said this to us on a Sunday morning when asked to identify her best early childhood memory with a perfect matter-of-fact straight face. We had been working out a series of sermon dialogues on Sunday mornings which we called God Watching. We were calling it that because through the stories of people in our congregation, we were looking for signs of where God has shown us that His hands have been on us throughout our lives. At that same time, we were looking for signs of where God is moving people beyond their pasts. It was quite a ride listening to these stories. Katie and I sat down on Sunday to dialogue about her life. Katie is the one who had come to us a couple of years previously as an abandoned street kid who had just turned 18 and been dumped by her adopted mother at the local women's shelter. Katie tells a great story of how God took that moment and then worked her over for the next couple of years to bring her to saving knowledge of Him. She speaks openly of her rebellion and final surrender to Jesus Christ during that time. She became our nursery director for a short season, finished her associate's degree at the local community college, and left us to jump to Seattle Pacific University, where she planned on pursuing a degree in teaching, childhood psychology, or early childhood development. A week before that, on Mother's Day, a beautiful African-American member of our church named Lindsay was interviewed by one of our leaders on what it was like growing up dirt poor on the wrong side of the tracks in Oklahoma City. Her mom held the family together in spite of ghetto-level poverty and drug addict father. The power of the church and prayer held a family together long after it should have disintegrated. She remembers being struck with death-threatening childhood asthma. Her drug addict father was stealing the saved-up money for her medicine so he could go out and buy a fix. Her mom, with bravery beyond belief, went to the drug dealer's house and demanded the money back, and got it. Prayer, faith, and desperation met in one instance of outstanding motherly heroics to save a child. We also interviewed another woman who had been coming to our church after seeing a news story on our homeless meal Super Bowl Sunday. She works for the radio and TV station and was compelled with her boyfriend to come and check out a church like ours, which would do such work. Her story is painful to hear. She grew up in small-town Montana in a very poor family with both parents being philandering alcoholics. Her father would disappear for weeks on end, and Mom would drop her off at a local church on Sunday mornings with a baby brother and a diaper bag. Mom wouldn't pick them up again until 6 p.m. She was barely old enough to just be in elementary school at the time. She and her brother wandered the streets with nothing to eat but the extra cookies she stuffed in her pockets at church. No one ever helped or said a thing because the grandparents were well-to-do contributors to the church, though not attendees. Her home was violent, and she carried that expectation of violent love into every relationship she ever had. She would eventually become an informant for the FBI and the DEA on breaking a major drug ring her abusive boyfriend's family ran. Her first attempt to discover God was derailed by a Lutheran pastor who wanted sex in exchange for baptism. Why she came to us instead is beyond belief, but God doesn't quit. It's amazing sometimes to hear the stories of God's successes. These stories weren't coming out of our homeless community meals. They were now the stories of our regular church folk. Well, regular to us, maybe not for most churches. The starting points of life are often so far down we would write these people off as never having a chance. If we take the time to listen and learn, we often discover hope through others. In those times, we discover that God is indeed watching out for us. In an authentic church, people get to tell their real story. They get to be both who they once were and who they are now at the same time. Most of my church world didn't so much like the past stories, except for the testimony times they could draw cheers and attendance at a service. But such stories certainly were not for church leaders and key lay people. In the end, it's not who we were, or not even who we are, that has any real substance. It's who we are becoming under the hand of Jesus. Since the time I first heard all three of these stories above, There have been many more twists and turns of the journey. 2 of them I no longer see now. One has moved away. In each season of our lives, in each moment, we are called to be faithful to who and what is in front of us, first to Jesus and then to others. As we do this, we learn to be faithful to our true selves too. The self we don't have to hide, the self that struggles and doubts and sometimes rails against life and God Himself. The person we are now and the person we are becoming often fiercely battle each other. Many times we are confused about which side to be on in that struggle, aren't we? Lindsay walks with Jesus today and is still a friend. The woman who grew up in Montana was an FBI informant I never see or hear about anymore. She was once a good friend, and there's pain there for me to even write that. That's the reality of church. The last time I heard of Katie was on the 6 o'clock news. She had gone to Seattle Pacific University, spent a couple of years there, and then returned to her tough family and rough friends. She made the 6 o'clock news here because she was found half-clothed in a dumpster one morning with her throat slit. She had refused a sexual encounter with an acquaintance. He beat her senseless, cut her throat with a box knife, and stuffed her in a dumpster. But Katie lived. Believe it or not, she walked away from that too. I believe God still has big plans for Katie. I know His hand remains on her life in spite of present circumstances. I hope I get to see the final place of glory that I still believe He's going to manifest in her and through her and with her, the same He is doing with all of us. Life among the walking dead of the lowest rung of society has its own pitfalls. The contagious infection of sin continues to permeate the air, and none of us are immune. God save us all.